They told me grief comes in waves. What they didn't say was that sometimes those waves turn into storms that rip up everything you thought was anchored. My name is Thomas Grady, 83 years old, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. I buried my wife, Alma, 3 months ago after a long fight with pancreatic cancer. 49 years of marriage, 4 kids, 2 dogs, and a tomato garden that could shame any farmer in Oklahoma. And now, nothing felt like home except that little hill behind the community clubhouse where Alma and I used to sit every Sunday evening watching the sunset. That hill became my cathedral. But Alma didn't belong to this HOA. Not really. She belonged to the red dirt of West Texas, to the hymns played on cracked church pianos, and to the kind of promises made in whispered kitchen conversations. She never liked Ridgegrove Estate, said it was too clean, too quiet, too polished. She wasn't wrong. This place was ruled by Patricia Albright, HOA president, self-declared moral compass of the entire county. She wasn't elected. She was inherited, like a family curse or an old money trust fund. The kind of woman who smiles through her teeth and fines you for leaving your trash bins out 30 seconds too long. She hated my flag. Said it was too large. Said the pole wasn't HOA approved. She hated my boots on the porch. Said they were an eyesore. She hated my lawn gnome holding a fishing pole. Said it promoted violence. But most of all, she hated Alma's memorial. A small wooden bench, a single rose bush, and a brass plaque that simply read, "Still watching the sunset." I installed it the week after the funeral. I never asked for permission, and I never would have gotten it. The first notice came 2 days after I placed it. Violation of landscaping rules. Unauthorized installation of permanent structures. Threat of $500 per day fines. I ignored it. The second came with photographs and bold red ink. The third came with a knock on my door. It was Patricia herself, flanked by 2 security officers from the HOA's new private enforcement group, Ridgegrove Safety Corps, a fancy name for glorified rent-a-cops with tactical vests. She stood on my porch in a pantsuit the color of wet. Her eyes scanned me like I was a stubborn weed. "Mr. Grady," she began, her voice coated in that fake politeness. "We've given you ample notice. The bench must go." I looked her dead in the eye. "You ever bury the love of your life, Ms. Albright?" She didn't answer. Just signaled her boys to follow. I watched them walk off, taking pictures of my gutters. But that was just the beginning. A week later, I came home from the VA clinic to find my backyard gate unlatched. Alma's bench gone. The rose bush uprooted. The plaque snapped in half. I dropped the groceries, got down on my knees, and just stared at the spot where she used to sit. All I could hear was the wind and the sound of my blood boiling. I called the HOA. No answer. I emailed. No reply. I drove to the clubhouse. The receptionist said they were restructuring public access. That night, I pulled out a file I hadn't touched in years, documents from my days in intelligence, old legal templates, records of the property line surveys I'd done myself. Because if Patricia Albright wanted a war, she'd get one. I filed an injunction the next day. Turns out, that little hill behind the clubhouse? Not technically HOA property. It was deeded to the county decades ago as part of a drainage easement. No one ever updated the maps. The HOA had no jurisdiction over it. I had legal standing. I filed a petition with the county for a historical marker. Attached photos of Alma, newspaper clippings, my military credentials. I made calls. Veterans groups. Local journalists. Old war buddies. Even my grandson-in-law, who happened to run a podcast called Small Town Reckonings. The story exploded in a week. They tried to stop me. Patricia filed a countersuit. Claimed emotional distress. Said my plaque created a hostile environment. She accused me of stalking HOA staff. I countered with drone footage of her and her staff trespassing on my land. Footage I got from a kid named Nate who flies FPV drones for fun. Then came the day everything changed. I was at the county courthouse, facing down Patricia and her four-person legal team. My own lawyer, an old friend named Marcus Wells, who used to draft battlefield rules of engagement, sat beside me. The courtroom was full. Press, veterans, residents, even a few HOA board members who'd never once challenged her before. I played my ace. Submitted notarized letters from the land's original developer confirming the deed. Played video testimony from Alma, recorded 6 months before she passed, explaining what that hell meant to her. I watched Patricia's lawyer squirm. I watched her smile fade. The judge ruled in my favor. Declared the land a protected historical and memorial site under state law. Ordered the HOA to cover legal fees. And added a permanent restraining order preventing any Ridgegrove personnel from altering the memorial again. But it didn't stop there. The next day, 25 Marines in uniform, most not, showed up with lumber, tools, and flowers. They rebuilt the bench, replanted the rose bush, welded a new plaque. This one said, Alma Grady, wife, nurse, keeper of Sunday sunsets. Memorial restored by those who remember what honor looks like. People started coming. Not just neighbors, strangers, journalists, church groups, Gold Star families. They came to sit, to reflect, to tell stories. The HOA tried to paint it as a cult. Said we were disturbing the peace. Said we were squatting. The sheriff and Old Navy guy told them to take a hike. Then came the petition. Over 8,000 signatures to recall Patricia Albright. Local news dug into her records. Found misuse of HOA funds. Nepotism. Backroom deals. She resigned before the audit finished. Her mansion went up for sale a week later. Ridgegrove changed after that. Rules relaxed. Fines dropped. A new board was voted in, half veterans, half young families. I was asked to be their community advisor. I declined. I already had a full-time job, showing up every Sunday to that hill, watching the sunset with a thermos of sweet tea and Alma's picture beside me. Last week, a boy no older than 10 walked up to the bench with his mother. He read the plaque, then turned to me and asked, "Were you the one who saved this place?" I didn't know what to say, because it wasn't me. It was her. It was all of them. Everyone who stood up when someone else tried to tear something good down. And if you're hearing this, if you're watching this video, just know, sometimes honor doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it holds a garden trowel and shows up quietly. And sometimes the loudest revolution begins with a trumpet, a rose bush, and a bench that wouldn't stay gone. Now I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever stood your ground against a system that forgot its humanity? Was I right to fight back, or should I have let it go? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to share this story. Because in a world that's forgotten how to remember, sometimes a simple promise is the loudest thing of all.